This is Ali Vogel from Flexi Design, and today I have the honor and privilege of interviewing Tom. Tom, where are you calling in from?
I'm currently in Boston, Massachusetts.
So, Tom, you and I met ages ago in Madrid, and back then you were at Eventbrite,
Mhm.
where you spent quite a long time in your career really building that. So, today I would love to hear a little bit more about what you've been up to the past few years and what brought you to the position that you are today.
I was at Eventbrite for 12 years. I just hit this week, actually, a year at Optimizely. So I left Eventbrite and I've been at Optimizely for the past year, and very relevant to our AI discussion because our whole focus at Optimizely has been shifting from this marketing product rather to this digital experience platform to this big two letters that you're hearing everywhere, AI now, and shifting to being this AI first company and really having the AI experience be the forefront and having all of our products and apps be those secondary things that are kind of being served up in service of the AI product. So, being a part of that shift has been really exciting for both not just our employees of bringing us that into the new realm, but also our customers. Like, how do we explain this like huge paradigm shift to an audience that maybe aren't as early adopters as maybe some more engineering based products and services. And so that's been a really exciting shift.
So, Tom, you spent, as we said, a long time at Eventbrite, and you saw it, I imagine, grow from what was maybe a tiny startup to this larger enterprise that it became. Can you tell me a little bit about your journey over a decade at Eventbrite?
Yeah. So I born and raised in New York. I thought I'd be in New York my whole life, but when I was interviewing for, or when I was looking for my next role, the one place outside of New York that I interviewed was at Eventbrite. And right when I chatted with everyone there, I was like, these are my people. They kind of like get the sense of fusing this like progressively digital world, but still gathering people together. So there's still this like awesomeness with a lot of the products and services that we use today. And they understood that. They understood this like fusion of both of those things. And I was hired as the first UI designer actually at Eventbrite. And in my time there, I got to see like the entire maturity of the design org. I've gotten to see like high growth startup, growing pains startup, like pre IPO, post IPO,
Um,
penalty box with COVID, and all these different things that really helped me experience the range of like design leadership as well. Because within my first year there, I started managing the team and eventually worked my way to like heading up the entire design group there. And just it being a global company, so global design team, hiring our first designers in India, having a team in Argentina, scaling an awesome team that was in Madrid, and just kind of like experiencing like a global design team and global org was just great. It's a great opportunity to just kind of like see how we can grow the maturity of design as well as like keep building this like ever growing product and experience and always pivoting, whether it's in-person events, hybrid events, virtual only events during COVID, and then going back into like hybrid and in-person ones.
So there's a lot of things that I would love to unpack there because I actually had no idea about your global team. So you talk about timing being a huge thing. And when I was working in San Francisco, working globally was absolutely not an option. Everyone was based and concentrated in certain cities like San Francisco, New York. Maybe teams might have a sales hub in Texas or in Utah, but it was very America centric, except for sales teams that were maybe abroad. And you actually hired a team in Argentina, in India, in Spain. We actually also have teams in Spain, in Argentina, in Brazil, in the US. Like we're pretty global because we service global clients. And so I feel like that was something that was not really mainstream until COVID. And now we're starting to see a bit of a move back into offices and these hubs. So it's interesting that you at Eventbrite did that even prior to COVID. What about now at Optimizely? Is that something you guys currently do, having global distributed teams? Is it all concentrated? How do you currently think about that as a design leader?
Yeah. So one of the things that appealed to me was like shifting from two-sided marketplace to like a SaaS organization, like more marketing centric, but also the fact that they were a global team again. And I was like, oh, I'm very comfortable and very familiar with this. Like the pain points and friction of like asynchronous and time zone, like non-overlap, and how to handle that. And so we currently have designers in the US. New York is one of our main hubs. We have designers in Europe, both London, Sweden, and a range of areas. And then we have designers in Vietnam as well. So we have a lot of different time zones. I think one of the key things is that we also have product managers and engineers in those areas. So they're devs areas and hubs. We are a remote culture. We have offices. So we sometimes, depending on the team or like the rapidity of how fast they work, try to get them clustered in certain areas, like our AI team, predominantly in the New York City office. So we are like hiring the designers to be kind of based in that space to kind of have them come into the office, collaborate, brainstorm, workshop. But it's been really great to just kind of continue with that. So when you think optimizer, you typically think experimentation, A/B testing, et cetera. But we also are a CMS platform, a CMP platform, a DAM, experimentation. We even have like a commerce side of our business, as well as now the Opal and AI side that we're scaling and growing. And so connecting all of that together around like these 6 or 7 ecosystem of apps has been enormous.
I'm curious, in the work that you do today, how are you ensuring that as a design organization, you are setting your team up for success and really understanding where the industry is at in terms of the competitive landscape, but also new emerging technologies and how you think about AI native products that you're building?
The landscape is vast, right? Like digital experience platform is such a huge catch-all. So you have like the huge organizations like Adobe, right, that are like direct competitors to some of our space. But then you also have other companies like Writer and Jasper and other types of like AI areas that are specific in one of the few kind of products that I mentioned. And so in that regard, it's, do you fight against all of them? Do you specialize in kind of what you do? And for us, it's really like looking at the incumbents while also seeing these new emerging companies. And as AI is kind of heated up and everyone's been kind of working on all this stuff together, it's been exciting to see the stuff that we do well, the stuff that we're improving, the stuff that other people do really, really well, and just kind of like the competitive landscape. And for us, we also use our own product. So Opal is leveraging like Google Gemini. And so for us, we have agents set up for like competitive landscape and trend scrapes where we're just like always kind of looking at what the market is doing as we're working on stuff.
And let's talk a little bit about you as a leader. So, the trends that I've seen in the industry have been this scraping off management layers, everyone getting their hands dirty. You've probably heard and seen and experienced from past colleagues in the past couple years. Even with some of our clients, we've seen design leaders that are really shifting what their roles look like. How do you, managing a team of 20, which is not small, it's significant, stay on top of your technical skills, making sure that you can be not just a people leader, but also really understanding the technology that you're working with, especially with, I imagine, to be such a complex product because of the suite of different types of products that Optimizely is.
So Opal, we kind of did like a bigger launch of it this year, which is our like marketing tool AI offering that we have. And we're continuing to add more things like agent builder, agent experiences to it. But also it's less so about building that for customers and also dog fooding it and us using it ourselves. And so for not just customers, but employees getting more comfortable with AI, you can't just throw it to them and then say like make an OKR around AI and set them up for success, right? A lot of people are very, whether you're a customer using these services or an employee themselves, some people are a little hesitant, right? About what this is. Is this going to replace my job? Is this really valuable? Is this just where the VC funding is? And so I set up a workshop where I've heard in other sessions, there were these really good moments where we launched an agent builder. And rather than just like expect our customers to do that, we were like, well, let's get more acclimated with it ourselves. And so I had one of the PMs come in and walk the team through how they built an agent that they ran that actually is an agent that we have an out of the box agent for customers right now. And we created a workshop where we came up with ideas that we could use for agents for the team and actually had them building out those agents themselves and test that stuff. So if people want to use another service, I'm like, yeah, go ahead, use it, bring it back to us. What do you like? What do you not like about it? I think designers just really need to be adaptable about what it is and how we should work to really invite the what ifs relative to that. And so I think the same way with how we work and what that means for not just designers being the ones making, but for anyone in the organization that has that idea to make those things and just working together to kind of accomplish that.
I think one of the things that I have found to be very interesting, but also kind of confusing and messy as a design leader is because the barrier to entry is lower, you have to filter through a lot more crap. Like, you just get a lot more portfolios, for example, that are just full of lack of craft, right? Because people can kind of shortcut through once with something that once took a lot of, time to really master and now can be generated, but it doesn't mean it has that level of craft that you would expect when you're, working at a high level. How do we keep quality standards up?
Yeah.
How do we make sure that the bar and the level of craft is still there? So I'm curious, is this something to another extent that you've seen in your organization? Have you been challenged with it with some of your stakeholders? How has that impacted you?
I am of the opinion that everyone's a designer and everyone's a maker. I just think we have subject matter expertise in like the customer needs and like interface specialization and stuff like that. But when design systems are just like leverage these components, there's no reason why other people can't adopt that. But I think the problem that you're calling out is which part of the process do those things emerge? And so for us, if people have like a blank canvas problem, like they don't know where to start or they don't know what the problem is, or they have an idea, having that like lovable prototype, even if it's not craft and perfect and design systemy, is a starting point for that conversation to occur, which I think is like awesome. So then the designer can be like, cool, I understand what you mean exactly. And we can start revving off of that. And I think so as a kickoff with product engineering and design, awesome thing to have as just like a starting point, right? But I think as the quality of AI prototyping tools improve, it becomes more enterprise ready, which I don't think we're quite there yet. Then there isn't any reason why other people can't be having the production ready experiences. I think where people get nervous and they're like, this is my job, is like, that doesn't mean that they still shouldn't get in a room together as product engineering and design and for 2 or 3 hours brainstorm and workshop and prototype an entire end-to-end production ready experience, right? Like, there's a lot of emergent tools that our teams are playing around with, like whether it's Lovable or Bolt, or we're using Figma Make to an extent. There isn't like a one thing to rule them all right now. It's, to me, this feels like when the human interface guidelines of material design and the iPhone first came out, right? Everyone's scrambling to understand this new way of working and shifting our methodologies. And this is like next era for us. It's going to be everyone, but I think we all just need to kind of work together and collaborate on it.
Absolutely. And you talked about collaboration and you mentioned some of the tools like Lovable, Bolt, Figma Make. Are there any other tools, maybe non-obvious tools or secret tools that your team has been using and experimenting that could be useful for those that are listening?
There was a tool that we did for our workshop. It was a prompting service that we all used just to experiment. But I think for me, it's like those are the main ones that we're using right now, to be short with your answer. But I think if a team member comes across anything, my potential is, yeah, I'll expense it for you for a month, play around with it, bring it back to the team and tell us what you like and don't like about it. We're looking at our own tool. Like obviously I mentioned it's linked in with Gemini 3, so we're using a lot of Google, but just seeing how we can use our own agent and agentic experience to work on our own design flows. So I think we have Figma MCP access that we're currently playing around with to see how does that work with like our own tooling, which would be great. And for customers, cool, they can throw in a Figma file and put it into a marketing campaign tracker, which is awesome for them. But for us, it's like, what does that mean for how we work with our teams and just exploring that type of stuff.
That's awesome. And where you guys are at right now in your team, are you also dealing with visual design, marketing design, or is it purely product and research?
So we have a brand creative team that handles a lot of like the marketing landing page experiences that we work with, but our areas tends to be around like the production, the product design side of the house. While they are more of the creative production design work, but there is a lot of collaboration in terms of what they're doing. We're also thinking of like how we can like have the optimized experience deliver on the AI promise. For me, really looking at a brand and making sure the brand promise occurs when it comes to the product and logging in and being like, what you see on the marketing landing page is what you experience on the product actual interaction itself is some of the areas that are really critical for me coming from a more consumer mindset and background from the marketplace.
So, what I find to be so interesting because at Flexi, we work on product design with product teams. We've also expanded in the last year to work with marketing and brand teams. Is that when it comes to this idea of AI burnout, I've seen it more with our creative brand designers more than product designers. So, our product designers tend to love to adapt AI workflow into their process, to be experimenting with tools, to really see how they can focus on what matters, which is ultimately really understanding user pains, working with product managers, of course, like tweaking UI and design system components where needed, but it's almost this mindset of like, yeah, let's be efficient. Let's focus on what matters. Whereas with our brand designers, with our, creative marketing designers, the craft, the creativity. I've heard anecdotally, they almost feel like AI is stealing from them. And so we've kind of had this push and pull of when to use AI, how to use it, how does that affect things like timelines or amounts of iterations? And I think in the last couple months, that has been a huge difference between the two different types of designers. So I'm curious from your team, having your 20-person product design team and then also collaborating with marketing design, brand. Is that something you've seen? Is it something you've felt? How has this idea of AI burnout lived or existed within your sphere?
I don't think there's any like brand person that wants to just work on ad banners all day. So like AI doing that for them, I don't think they'd mind, right? I think it's the creative marketing campaign kind of coming up with those ideas is really what is the stuff that they gravitate towards, right? Being empowered strategically to like drive forward those campaigns. And so it's like, how do we put that front and center for them to kind of minimize that? If that is done by AI, that would create the burnout, I would say. For us, really, it's so new when it comes to AI that I think it's more just like the persistence of organizations talking about it, of like forcing it as a thing without the employees really understanding the why that is, I think, causing that like burnout towards it. With us strategically, like we've communicated why we think it's going to be the best experience for our customers and also for us, right? We've acquired a lot of different organizations. We want our products to be more continuous, and to just go and update all of these architectures would take us forever, right? However, with AI, not just as an assistant, but as like the kind of core of the experience, you get an updated interface, you get the efficiencies, you get the automation, you get all the stuff that kind of frees up your time that I think is going to really gravitate towards their needs as customers. And I think when it comes to the design side of the house, designers don't like crave working on error states of flows. That's not like what a product designer really wakes up in the morning to do. So once I get the main foundation of what I'm trying to communicate for this new feature or this new advanced capability in an existing feature, being able to automate that with AI is great because then they could just focus on the next frontier or like start pushing more around the what ifs or looking at more 0 to 1 opportunities for the business and things that really, I think, activate them. And I think maybe for more junior or mid designers that haven't really flexed to that yet, that gives them a greater opportunity to kind of operate in a space that is more kind of acclimated for senior or staff designers. So I think it just kind of helps level everyone up to this new space of thinking and ways of working that I think would be great.
You had mentioned that Optimizely is moving towards being an AI native company. So I would love to hear in your words if you can explain what that means in the context of your product. And besides the AI workflows that your team is currently utilizing today, what that actually means from a product perspective? What does it actually mean to be AI native? And what does it mean to be a designer that's building an AI native product?
Yeah, our current marketing that we have is like creating the marketing infinite workforce. Instead of assigning tasks to a marketing team member to accomplish, what if you have a bunch of agents that can kind of accomplish some of those for you so that those other marketing people, similar to the product design thing that I mentioned, can work more on like marketing strategies, right? Rather than writing out a requirement or a marketing document. And so it's just removing the stuff that was more administrative so that they can be more efficient with their work and be more creative inspirationally, right? We're not trying to take away creativity is the thing where I feel like there is this dread and maybe like concern of a lot of that stuff. And so how does that mean for how the design team is thinking about that is really focusing our attention on looking at the customer pain points, whether it's like from our qualitative signals or our quantitative signals, and really focusing on either fixing those in the product today, seeing if AI can do a better job of that, or is there a differentiator where AI can only do that? And the existing product experiences that we have today can't do that. And bucketing those and really determining the best experiences that we could build out for those customers and bringing them into it more successfully. I think for me, one of the areas that we definitely have to get better at in general across all of AI is onboarding and guidance. Like how do we give them confidence and trust in these systems so that when we automate it for them, they're not like worried that it's going to go haywire or do things that they shouldn't do. And so that's an area where we're specifically focusing our attention on.
It's a great point because I think that when I'm going through a flow, for example, and I see that things are populated for me with really great AI, you almost kind of take a step back and you ask yourself, am I missing something? Did I miss a beat? And it brings me to thinking about a specific example that we're working on right now, where we're currently working with a client that does global finance and cross border transactions. And we've started doing a lot of optimizations with them specifically because their marketing team wants to drive traffic based on actually AI based search. So anytime someone's like, hey, how do I pay someone in Argentina? The product comes up. How do I transfer money and get the best rates when I'm transferring Brazilian reais to USD. The landing pages come out. And there's so much testing and there's so much optimization that can be done there. And there's so many different ways to use AI. But again, because you are talking about such a sensitive subject, you can't necessarily just have generative content because if the LLMs mess up and promise something that the company can't deliver on, you're in trouble, especially when it comes to finance and there's so much regulation around it. So there definitely needs to be a healthy balance. There needs to be that human intervention in your world, which is very optimization heavy, based just on what the company is offering. How do you think about speaking with your stakeholders, with the C-suite, with some of the leaders that might want to push towards this direction? And yet, as the one who's managing the human element of the product design team, have that conversation with them and really push and advocate for some of this healthy friction and some of the other concepts that you had mentioned.
I think why I love organizations is like they're so amorphous and ever changing, but like they're very human, right? But organizations should also mirror your product. And I think what we're really getting to the crux of is around like trust and showing your work, right? That's one of the things that AI services have been doing lately is when you ask a prompt, it's showing you I'm fetching this from here, or I'm going and doing this, or I'm showing my sources and showing the verification along the way. Initially, it didn't have any of that, right? And everyone was like, where is this coming from? Like, are you hallucinating? But now that it's showing that, you're getting a little bit more confidence in what it's doing. And I think similarly for designers, if I just pull up a Figma file and I show the final design, I'm like, this is it. People are going to be like, why? And I think that parallel is just how we should be generally approaching this stuff. And so when it comes to stakeholders, we know that like evals and guardrails, these are all things that we've been introducing because that is just helping with not just show the work that it's doing, but to put more of those parameters so that it doesn't just like run through all of your tokens, for instance. or doesn't do any other additional things that aren't expected. And then I think from the design expectation, it's just how we should be talking about this stuff, how we are doing it from a very customer centric way, which is as the customer, I'm new to this. I'm excited by this, but these are my cautions that I have, or like these are the things that I'm worried about, or these are the things I like to do. And so if they like to do that stuff, we probably shouldn't create an agent around that stuff quite yet. It's more around the stuff that what stinks, what takes the most time, and then actually showing them the numbers and the impact that that has on their organization so that for the business, they're like, I would never want to get rid of this because I'm saving how many hours or how many team members' time. And then all the other stuff that we'll be adding on top of that just kind of compounds that. And so, yeah, it goes back to that sense of like brand affinity, right? You're teaching me how to do this stuff, but you're also saving me all this time and efficiency and granting me more enablement to do the things I want to do.
For us specifically, I remember an instance where we were coming up with a concept for a website, and we used different tools to actually scale the concept. The concept itself was still done by the designer. So in this case, we decided for a space company to actually kind of take it back and do this really cool, like sketchy illustration style. But to do that all by hand for 10-page website would take months. Instead, we were able to take a concept, create a prompt, and basically run that through Midjourney and come up with a ton of different illustrations that we were able to scale throughout the website. But ultimately, that concept was done by a designer. It was done by a creative. The AI LLM did not provide that idea for us, but it was able to scale it. And this is an instance of not replacing the designer and their creative ability with AI, but rather using AI to tenfold the productivity.
Saying it's almost like where you place the craft. And so I think there's an interesting thing there of like, where do we apply the craft? And does it always end with the human touch, or does it get to the point where it gets so good that it's indistinguishable? But I think right now for us and how we've been thinking about prototyping and feature development, is it a starting point that generates that and then the team kind of continues that? Or is it more fleshed out and the team can kind of join in and collaborate on that, but it still requires that human interaction at the end phase of it, similar to how customers are thinking about this AI work, right? If I ask it to do a marketing campaign or it generates a bunch of content and copy, right now there's still the sense of like, I would like to review that before I hit the publish button or before you hit that publish button. There might be a sense of like human touch at the beginning, and then it can be automated a little bit further. But I think as this stuff becomes more normalized, there's still this sense of like, I want to kind of just review it and have my like sign off. What I get very excited about is like we've been talking a lot about Horizon 1, 2, and 3. Horizon 1 is AI as an assistant, like bolted onto a lot of experiences where like you either have it adjacent or you interact with it as like a purple button, we call it, but the sense of like it's a very contextualized action relative to the AI. And then Horizon 2 is this notion of AI as the interface by default. And the app pulls in when necessary in like a canvas view, but you interact with that, but it goes away and the AI is kind of first and foremost. And it's agents, you're seeing the agents do that stuff, you're reviewing that stuff. As you build confidence in that, agents will eventually be interacting with other agents. And then I think Horizon 3, which is kind of interesting and unknowing right now, is this notion of the orchestrator, where like I am giving it a much more abstract request, which is improve my sales for this product by 10%. And then that agent and those agents are off doing those things autonomously. And I'm kind of zoomed out and just kind of reviewing what things I need to potentially course correct, but they are operating for all intents and purposes like a workforce. And I think for that, once we get to that lens, that's where the human touch necessarily doesn't happen at the end, but might be zoomed in those moments where there needs to be either like a correction or just type of reviewing and analysis. I think the big exciting thing is like, how do we evolve the automation, the stuff that is kind of very bogs us down, we don't need to be doing, and we can focus more on the creative aspect or direction of the agents to kind of accomplish those tasks for us.
It's pretty wild to think about because you listen to the language that you used in Horizon 3, and it sounds a lot like what people are doing today, except that LLMs output the plan, whether it be a good plan or not, but we don't necessarily have agents executing it for
Right.
us. So I'm super curious. I think no one can really answer it now. We haven't gotten far enough into those horizons to be able to see impact, but especially for a company like Optimizely, where so much of your business is helping teams grow and helping to provide that data for them on how to grow and what the best way to do it is. So going from there and kind of the horizon one, let's call it, that we are today, to skipping through and getting to horizon three and actually having the tool do the work for them and execute it well. So as we wrap up this conversation, I'm curious to hear from you, Tom. What is the thing that today you are the most excited about AI wise, and what it should die as we move on to the next horizon?
I think the thing most exciting for me is when we put like an agent that we just made in front of our customers and they're like, this is amazing. Like one of the things we did recently was we have a GEO agent because a lot of our marketing customers are very nervous about the shift from SEO to GEO and like them understanding that, especially at the rate of development, is this massive shift for a lot of them. Well, we've created this like GEO agent that actually will do this stuff automatically for you and will help output the best optimized page for you and can do that at scale. And they're just like, this is incredible. Right? We also have one like a translation agent that can like automatically translate your pages at scale for your marketing landing page. And they're like, this would have been teams and this would have been weeks and so much document and so much communication. For me, there's a lot of unknowns, but I think when you are able to solve those things that take so much time, reduce that to nothing for them, where they can then go and do those other more meaningful strategic things for their businesses, as well as exciting for them as like humans. Like that's the stuff that I'm most excited about for AI. Like not a specific like this is the next frontier for AI. It's more just like solving those acute needs for customers. I think when it starts to click, not just for the prospective buyers or the existing buyers, but for the people working on this stuff. As for the things I'm less excited about when it comes to it, I don't know. I tend to have a pretty open mind with this stuff. I know there's obviously naysayers to this, and I certainly have my days where I'm just like, this seems it's somehow being led by an oligarchy group that's kind of imposing this new wave of things. But I think for me, it's really I want to not steal the creativity from people, and I think as long as businesses don't try to solve and remove the creativity, but use it as a jumping off point or an inspiration point, I think that that's fair. But then there are companies that deliberately buck that trend or change it and either forge their own or people move to that and that becomes the new norm. I don't know how that migration occurs in an AI world where that homogeneity potentially could grow and whether it is trained enough to pivot and cause that direction, right? And so I think if it just keeps doing that type of stuff, it could be very snake eats its own tail sort of approach. And so that's the stuff where I'm less eager or excited by, but maybe there's a way to solve that too. I think anything is solvable, but it's really just thinking about the audience and solving problems today versus coming up with a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. And that's like the main thing that we should be aspiring how we create and how we make things for people, whether it's with computers or with our own hands.
Oh, I love that. I love especially what you said about making sure that there's still a level of uniqueness and whether or not it will be intentional from these LLMs to actually identify, okay, if everyone it has this purple hue and is doing these gradients for an AI brand, what would something different look like? And to have the intelligence to actually be able to learn, to deviate, to co-create with humans, and to essentially create more variety and different types of solutions instead of us all going towards the same ones. With that, thank you so much for
Thank
taking
you.
the time to have this conversation. If the audience wants to ask additional questions, to get in touch, what would be the best way for them to reach you?
I'm on LinkedIn, Tom Censani. You can search for me. I don't think there's other Tom Censanis on there, but you could just message me on there and just say hi, and hopefully you enjoyed some of the chatter. But you can just hit me up on there, and that would be great.
Thanks so much, Tom.